Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are watching The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards, fire up your fingers, and come join the conversation. Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are watching The Right of the People. It is August 14th, 2020, and I'm glad that you're here to be part of the conversation. Speaking of glad that they're here, I'd like to introduce my esteemed and wonderful panel. First up, we have Roll Call 219. How you doing, sir?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Uh-oh, sounds like Ro got the hiccups.
Just a little bit.
That's quite all right. And we have the newly married Tactical Pickle himself, Calaveras 32 Special. How you doing, sir?
I'm pretty sure my wife would agree with the newly enslaved part, but overall I'm doing all right. So I appreciate the invite there, Budget.
Oh, no problem, man. No problem. We have the one, the only, the irascible yet lovable Squibload,
who was able to find the mute button for a change.
Woohoo! And then joining us from behind enemy lines on the East Coast, we have the Kingpin himself, David Bowling. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. Good to see everybody.
Glad to have you here. Glad to have all of you here. Speaking of glad to have you here, glad to have you folks out there in the chat here as well. Speaking of which, you know what? I keep forgetting to reauthorize my doggone YouTube chat widget. So I guess, yes, Pickle, you did curse me with a little bit of technical diddlies right here at the beginning. Doggone it.
That's one thing I'm good at, is cursing chats.
Well, stop! I don't want them. I would like to once, just once, look like I maybe have some clue what the hell I'm doing. Maybe. Just once. That's not too much to ask, but shut up! Don't laugh at me! Yeah, I know. There's a reason technical difficulties is the running joke, right? Out there in the chatteroonie, we have Calaveras 32 Special was way early. The research department himself. Nighthawk Medic was coming in second place. Let's see who we have else out there. We have Gun Loving Grandpa. How you doing, Buck? We have Guns and Barbecue. Welcome, welcome. Chris Fulmer. Squib Load and Squib Lift. Squib's pulling triple duty. Can you keep yourself straight and keep track of who you're supposed to be here, Squib?
Those aren't my only accounts, so I mean,
do you have like a little card to refer to or something?
I guess I am having an identity crisis.
That happens to men our age, you know.
Let's not talk about that on this show.
You should copyright Chatteroonie, because that's one of my favorite sayings, but you should definitely copyright that and make like t-shirts and stuff.
Welcome to the Chatteroonie. We got Andrew Faulkner out there as well, Seven Wonders. Who else? As I scroll through the Chatteroonie, who else? Jacob S. is out there, says I was interrupted by an ad. Well, you know, got to pay the bills somehow, right? Ghost Tactical is in the house. How you doing, sir? Kingpin pulling double duty as well. And I think I've caught up. Got 11 people watching out there, so sound off in the chat so I can say hello. But not only just for that, but because this is a two-way conversation. It's not just me talking to you. It is not a lecture. It is not a presentation. This is a free exchange of ideas. All I ask is that we try to keep things PG-13 and we try to keep things civil. I'm quite all right with having a dissenting opinion. I do not wish to live in nor experience on my show an echo chamber. I want to have other ideas to bounce my ideas off of. By doing that, that's how we learn and how we grow. And, well, if you look at my waistline, you can tell I'm all about growth. Got a
Whatever
couple...
you say, budget. Whatever you say, budget. Whatever you say, budget.
Oh, hell no. We got a couple more out there. We got DM Foss and Poor Conservative coming in. So, glad to see everybody here. Got a lot to talk about this week, as we always do. This, lately, the dumpster fire that is the world has been giving us a lot to discuss. Defense Dad's coming in the house, as is M. Gabriel. I haven't got that. M. Gabriel's asking about how's that trigger out there. He's talking about the Franklin Armory BFS3 binary trigger for the Ruger 1022. I have one. I was installing it and discovered that the package did not have the hammer spacers, so I'm waiting on Franklin Armory to send me the hammer spacers. Once I get those in the house, I will go ahead and finish installing the trigger. But I don't think this counts as handling a firearm. It is a pieces part. But I do have the binary diddly. I got the safety installed. YouTube's going to cut my feed now. But as soon as I can get the rest of it, I'll get it installed and start getting some videos out. Yeah, because that's going to be a lot of fun. I even bought some tracers to play with that. So look for that one coming in the semi-near future. But anywho, we got a lot to talk about. So I'm going to dive right into it. First up, from the Chicago Tribune, because you know what? The whole rioters and, I'm sorry, protesters. All these rioters and all this civil unrest is the gift that just keeps giving. Well, I guess if you want to look at it in a positive way, it's the gift that keeps on giving. I guess it's really kind of like herpes in that you just can't seem to get rid of it. Yeah. This is from the Chicago Tribune from August 10th. Police shooting of Englewood man reignites political debate and looting as Mag Mile trashed, 13 cops injured, 2 people shot. And it's by, like, I think everybody at the Chicago Tribune, so I'm not going to read all of them. Hundreds of people swept through the Magnificent Mile and other parts of downtown Chicago early Monday, smashing windows, looting stores, and confronting police after officers shot a suspect in Englewood hours earlier. The mayhem marked the second time since late May that the city's upscale shopping district has been targeted by looters amid unrest, reigniting the debate over policing as city leaders continued to point fingers and downtown again was shut down overnight, heading to Tuesday. As business owners boarded up shops and braced for the possibility of additional looting, some cautioned against simplifying the situation or blaming any single issue. It's not just people looting, said Patsy Mullins, whose Gold Coast store, Accessorize, was completely emptied. Let's dig to the root of the problem. Let's not look at the surface. We need to get to the bottom of this. Otherwise, well, this problem will never be solved, and it will continue again and again. City officials said the seeds for the crime spree were sown on social media Sunday afternoon after officers shot and wounded a 20-year-old man who allegedly had fled and fired shots at them. Mayor Lori Lightfoot on Monday decried a false rumor on social media that police officers killed a 15-year-old boy. That led residents to clash with police officers in Englewood and prompted calls to head toward downtown. Some looting began around midnight, with people streaming in and out of high-end stores. Some could be seen throwing merchandise into a rental truck and other large vehicles before driving away. This was not an organized protest, Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown said. Rather, this was an incident of pure criminality. This was an act of violence against our police officers and against our city. Black Lives Matter Chicago, which protested outside a near Southside Police Precinct Monday night, blasted Lightfoot for accepting the police version of events and not doing more to institute reforms. The organization suggested the man was right to flee authorities, given the department's history of racism and abusive tactics. I mean, what the hell? Why not run from cops and shoot at them? I mean, how else are you going to get away with whatever you're doing, right? In a predictable and unfortunate move, she did not take the time to criticize her officers for shooting yet another black man. Actually, I'm very shocked that she didn't take the time to criticize her officers, because it seems to be what she's been doing. The organization's statement read, "Lightfoot instead spent her time attacking looters. The mayor clearly has not learned anything since May, and she would be wise to understand that the people will keep rising up until CPD is abolished and our black communities are fully invested in. In other words, until you get rid of the police and pay us off." More than 100 people have been arrested so far, according to Chicago police. At least 3 appeared in bond court Monday, including a 25-year-old Joliet man who police say threw a brick at them while trying to break into the Burberry store on North Michigan Avenue. 13 officers were injured during the mayhem, authorities said. A civilian and private security guard were shot and wounded. In the wake of the unrest, shattered glass, broken mannequins, toiletries, and shoeboxes littered the city's toniest streets. Many store owners worried about how they would survive the latest turmoil amid the pandemic and with insurance claims still unpaid from the previous looting spree. "I just don't know what the next move is going to be," said Mullins, the accessory store owner. "I'm out of work. They've destroyed everything. They've taken all the merchandise that I have to sell. This requires an investment of money to rebuild and replenish. And I'd be damned if I would do it in Chicago." It took police officers roughly 4 hours to get downtown under control, leading to a political blame game and calls for the Illinois National Guard to once again help quell unrest in the country's third largest city. Downtown Alderman Brian Hopkins, who said he was on Michigan Avenue from midnight to 4 a.m., I wonder what kind of loot he got, described a scene in which officers were overwhelmed by looters and apparently did not have much of a plan for restoring order. He criticized Lightfoot for failing to develop an effective strategy following looting incidents in May and June. The real question today is, where was the strategy? What was the decision-making at the highest levels, said Hopkins. That means the police superintendent and the mayor, who's a very hands-on mayor when it comes to these kinds of decisions. The Black Lives Matter movement released a statement suggesting Lightfoot should not be surprised by the Magnificent Mile being targeted, given Chicago politicians have long valued protecting the high rent area, while poorer neighborhoods have suffered from disinvestment and neglect. Over the past few months, too many people, disproportionately black and brown, have lost their jobs, lost their income, lost their homes, and lost their lives, as the city has done nothing and the Chicago elite have profited, the organization's statement read. When protesters attack high-end retail stores that are owned by the wealthy and service the wealthy, that's not our city and has never been meant for us. The violent stretch began Sunday afternoon when police department's newly created community safety team responded to a call about a man with a gun in the Englewood neighborhood, authorities said. Officers found a man walking east on 57th Street and Racine Avenue, matching the physical description, and attempted to stop him, police said. The man, later identified as 20-year-old Latrell Allen of Chicago, fled, leading on to a foot chase by officers. Authorities said Allen shot at the officers during the chase, and the 2 officers returned fire. Allen, who was taken to University of Chicago Medical Center, has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder and unlawful use of a weapon, authorities said. Outside Allen's Aberdeen Street home, his mother, Latricia, received a rundown from a neighbor of the prior day's events that ended with her son shot 5 times. The mother's voice raised as neighbor Tanisha Caldwell cast doubt on much of the police version of events. Caldwell said she watched from her front porch as an officer fired gunshots at the fleeing man. She also told Latricia Allen that her son tried to give up before shots were fired. Allen expressed relief that her eldest son was expected to survive his 5 bullet wounds, each bullet having missed a vital organ. He said, "Mama, I'm all right," she recounted. He said, "Mama, I love you." I said, "I love you too." He said, "Mama, they shot me. They shot me 5 times. Allen said her son denied having a gun. Well, yeah, of course. Though police posted a photo of a gun they said they found at the scene. The community safety team officers were not wearing body cameras, meaning there may not be video to either support or challenge the department's account. When pressed by the Tribune to explain the lack of video, a police department spokesman said those officers don't wear cameras despite the team's stated mission of intervening in Chicago's most violent areas. Well, that's kind of stupid, actually. I would want I want body cameras where I work because they exonerate you from accusations. The Civilian Police Accountability, the city agency that investigates officer-involved shootings, said surveillance cameras showed the pursuit of a man matching the description of the person believed to be in possession of a firearm. Those recordings were not released. COPA also issued a public plea Monday for anyone with video or information about the shooting to come forward. The lack of immediate independent corroboration drew skepticism from several community groups, including Black Lives Matter Chicago. More than an hour after the Sunday shooting, police and witnesses said a crowd of about 30 people faced off against officers holding a police line near 56 in Aberdeen. Police said a man among the crowd stoked the group's anger by passing along misinformation, including that police shot a teenage boy. During a scuffle, one officer was hit with pepper spray and a second officer suffered a minor shoulder injury. A large number of officers cordoned off streets in nearly every direction until the mood of the crowd cooled off. But by that time, Brown said, messages began appearing on social media encouraging people to head downtown. Gee, I wonder who's behind ramping all this crap up. If you've been paying attention at all to the show over the last several weeks, you know who I think's behind it. Anyhow, I'm not going to go this it just goes into Lightfoot's blaming this person, BLM's blaming this person's blaming the other person, and nobody wants to accept responsibility for any of this garbage. I saw a video. Unfortunately, I didn't bookmark it, I don't believe. It was kind of humorous. So police chasing a guy down the street after he was looting in, I think it was Macy's. And as soon as the police went around the corner, a crowd went from across the street and ran in and started looting into the store right after they left. I thought that was hilarious. I mean, hell, you got to laugh at it. Otherwise, you just get mad. So, what do you guys think? Just more of the same or what?
Well, there's an interesting thing about the body cameras. It's relevant to the conversation, but it's not like directly involved. There's a group of progressive prosecutors, or that's kind of an odd combination, but they're trying to ban body cameras because it's a civil rights violation against the quote-unquote citizens. Then I heard a story today, I can't remember what state it was in, what level it was at, but there's a group of police, a police organization that was trying to put a cap, I don't know what you would call that, like a gag order almost on the body cameras because it's in a violation of the officers' civil rights.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something right here. From, not that I'm law enforcement, but I'm corrections. For those that don't know, I work at my local juvenile detention center, and I'm going to tell you something. I wish I had a body camera, particularly one that records audio, because body cameras would do two things. Number one, they make sure I would keep it. They would make sure I keep it professional, because I am a little hot-tempered, believe it or not, and sometimes I let my mouth get away from me. Not that anyone here has ever heard that, right? But they help honest officers stay honest. Number two, they exonerate you from false accusations. So I'm going to tell you something. The only people in law enforcement or corrections who don't want body cameras are the bad cops, the bad COs, the corrupt people. They're the ones that don't want them.
Whatever court level
and that's a
it was,
fact.
Struck it down. Yeah, whatever court level it was struck it down and said that you're out of your mind. You're a public servant on public time. We have the right to see what you're doing.
Absolutely right.
Well, on the flip side, you've seen those YouTube videos where the cop says, stop filming or quit taking pictures or whatever. That instantly tells me he's a bad cop. He's trying to hide something. He doesn't want to get caught doing something. Even though I know you could edit something, you could Photoshop something. If you take that to court and you tear it apart, you can have somebody go, yeah, this is Photoshop, this is edit, whatever. So anytime an officer says you can't take pictures, you can't film, and I'm not in a secure installation that I don't know, I'm in Fort Knox or you know the nuclear repository or something, whatever. I don't see why I can't. So especially if I'm out in public, I'm on the sidewalk, I'm in a public place. If they say stop filming or whatever, that instantly tells me they might be up to no good.
Absolutely.
They have something to hide. I think they should have body cameras, and we should have the right to it and not have to wait either. The Freedom of Information Act, we should be able to get that right away. It's not like we're taking it from them, we're just getting a copy of it. You would have a lot more situations where people would have access to stuff and maybe make better judgments instead of what happened with this Floyd crap. And I also think that we should be allowed to record everything. If they won't let you do it right then and there might be a technicality that your lawyer could use to throw out the case.
Yep.
Well, only thing the police can do if you're recording is they can order you to take the phone out of your hand. Like if you're sitting in your car getting a ticket and you got the phone in your hand, they can say that is, you know, you got something in your hand, you're making me nervous, and they can get you to put it down. But they can't actually make you, just with an order, make you stop filming.
But even that, well, you're making me nervous thing, that's for talking about the good cops, bad cops with the body cams and then being able to record on public right away. That's for, you know, the good cops, as long as they can see it's a cell phone and it's not being presented, like you're not trying to thrust it out the window when they don't know what's coming. That, again, to me is one of those kind of red flags about that's for, you know, and if we start allowing too much of the, well, it makes me nervous, so it shouldn't be a loud thing, that could start becoming, you know, misused as the sleazeball, being using that as a convenient excuse to bury evidence as well.
Yeah. A couple of comments out there in the chat that I want to address. Speak Life Garden Homestead and Permaculture, which is a new one on me. Although I think, if you don't mind, are you by any chance in Northeast Ohio? Because I've seen a truck roaming around my locale with a very similar name emblazoned on it, so I'm just wondering if it's the same person. But anyhow, Speak Life says, police body cameras, something most can get behind, but I struggle begging for more surveillance. Almost like they want us all begging for it and for a police state. I get what you're driving at, but coming from the other side of the fence, as I said, I'm in corrections. Man, I want them because they help me. They would help me tremendously. There have been several times when I've had to do the he said thing, and all I have is my word and my credibility, you know, against multiple people telling flat out lies, when an audio recording would have been just the best thing in the world for me. I think I absolutely want a body camera on me. Let's see. Poor Conservative says budget needs a body cam with image stabilization. Yeah, probably. Let's see. Where else? There was something else I wanted to talk about. Nighthawk Medic says that he keeps a dash cam in his car front and back, and it fixes that issue. Yeah, you know, I have one. I just haven't installed it yet. I kind of got to get around to that. So, yeah,
Well,
with
I
you
sent
totally.
Squibby a link of a guy that I know that had his car attacked, and in the process of being attacked, he actually ran one of the people over backing up, and he's not in jail. He's not being charged or anything like that. But he had 2 cameras in his car, so it caught everything that was happening. And then a story even closer, a very close friend of mine had their daughter attacked the other day. A guy pulled up out of the middle of nowhere and started bashing on her windshield with his bare hands. And she was able to get her cell phone out fast enough to get a picture of the vehicle he was driving. She couldn't get a picture of him because, you know, he's smashing in the windshield, freaking her out. But before he could get away, she got her phone out. So if you got the opportunity to get a dash cam, that'd probably be the next purchase I would be buying. You know, skip whatever else you had playing, get a dash cam.
Yeah, I've got one. I just need to put it in because, you know, I'm kind of lazy. Chris Former says he's thought about getting dash cams, but just never has.
Well, you can also argue back and forth. Okay, I live, I'm the gun snob, and I live on a 7-mile long dirt road and have my closest neighbors 35 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
You might not need a dash cam. But if you're in a heavily packed suburb or an urban area or driving into a city for work a lot, it's probably not a bad idea.
Yeah, but as much as we've seen Snobby on the road lately, a dash cam probably would be a good idea for him. Because even if you live out in the boonies, you most likely go someplace that ain't the boonies every once in a while and have some kind of human contact. So it'd be good to protect yourself.
It's a good idea if you're a YouTuber, that's for sure.
As long as he keeps the volume off on that, because you know what he does to that seat.
I don't. No. Speak Life says, yes, I want police body cams. Just scares me. I want more cameras. LOL. Worried it will lead to robots on the sidewalks tracking us. Replacing some officers. Think that will ever happen? I don't know. I sure as heck hope not. It's hard to get a machine to feel bad for you and give you a break.
Hey man, all I know is this weekend they're going to close off the Dan Ryan because they're going to have protests. Everything that you read tonight was strictly false from what I heard from the mayor today. And I'm not trying to discredit you, but it's
You're not discrediting me. I'm just reading the article, dude.
Exactly. Because they're just throwing stuff in the narrative. Whatever you read tonight was nothing that I got on my feed from Northwest Indiana. And they're trying to work this thing. And I've been called every name in the book about this stuff. And I'm telling you right now that those people over there have no idea what's going on, what they're going to do, or how they're going to do it. This weekend, you're going to come back on next Friday, and you're going to have, even more things happen that, yada, yada, yada. This is how it's going to happen. I've been talking about this for weeks on and weeks out. And it's tiring. It's tiring at this point. But all that stuff, that's the complete opposite. It's what she held 2 press conferences, old Beetlejuice herself. 2 different press conferences today talking about what she's going to do about everything, about the Mag Mile and everything. Macy's today just told their landlord that they're leaving. Macy's,
yeah, I would too.
As soon as you come off the train, the South Shore in my area, as soon as you come off there, on the trip, as soon as you get on there, you come up off the platform. Guess what the first store you see is? It's Macy's. That's how that works over there in Chicago. And they're like, we're not going to have our store there anymore. They say they have lost more money during C-19 than they have ever imagined.
I bet.
And then you throw this on top of it. They say this is going to cripple Chicago's economy.
Yeah.
And what this lady's going to have to deal with is going to be, it's not my problem. I'll tell you that. I live on the other side of the border.
Well, anybody who thinks that this was about this dude getting shot by police is sadly mistaken. This is just criminals being criminals. This is thugs being thugs. This is the exploitation of an opportunity. It's just an excuse to be pieces of shit thieves. That's all it was. Flat out.
For the violence to happen where the tourists and the business people congregate, this safe area in Chicago, right? That's going to not only cause the businesses that are there to leave, but it's also going to affect people coming in for tourism and business. They're going to go, no, I'm not going there. They're going to lose that revenue, and that revenue helps the whole city, not just that section of the city. And these people are so ignorant that they don't realize that they're affecting their welfare because that's tax revenue.
I was going to say, they're literally affecting their welfare because these are the people that are paying the taxes that support them.
That would be like the people in Las Vegas going down to the Strip and burning everything down, and then going, "Hey, why don't we have any money?"
Yep.
Because that's the majority of the revenue comes in, and that's just the mentality of thugs.
Well, they did. Since the news won't cover it, Legend Taliaferro's suspected murderer has been captured. So
Good.
There's one good piece of news that none of the mainstream media is going to tell you.
Good. Refresh the memory for those who don't remember who this is, because the media hasn't been talking about it.
Yeah, he's the little boy that was killed a couple weeks ago during this whole, George Kirby stuff and Black Lives Matter, everybody, So nobody cared about him. Nobody talked about him. And when Donald Trump decided to start sending in his stormtroopers, which his soldiers, which are actually just federal police officers, he named it Operation Legend. And he went in there and bumped a bunch of people in the head and cleaned up some of these cities. And he named it Legend because, somebody needed to remember that little kid that was killed. He wasn't a, 43-year-old meth head, so his life must not have mattered as much as George Kirby's did.
It'd be nice if Donald Trump did have some actual stormtroopers, maybe a few AT-ATs, have a Star Destroyer hover over the city. That would put law and order back into place.
Well, that's what those idiots don't understand, is when you put memes out and you call Donald the Trump Stoppo. That's hilarious. That's funny. I don't know about y'all, but us Trumpies, we love that stuff. We think it is absolutely funny because maybe once in a while they'll throw out something funny. And when they were posting the whole Trump Stoppo and Trump Stormtroopers, we loved it. It was hilarious. That doesn't affect. They think that they got us with that because they called Donald Trump's people the Gestapo.
Hey, I'm all for the stormtroopers. I'm an Empire man. Always have been.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it would be, could you imagine they got a riot and an AT-AT comes down the street? People can argue that it only moves at 6 miles an hour. Yeah, the average person can't run that fast. When it doesn't blow away, it'll stomp on it. That'll end the riot pretty dang fast.
Yes.
But
no, just 2 trees stuck to 2 vines. That's all you need.
I was gonna say, as long as some furries don't get to it, we're all right.
Oh, we love the Ewok.
Yeah, no, we don't. You might. We don't.
Hey, did they get the mayor of Chicago out of the cantina? Is that where they found her?
Probably.
It sounds like
She was probably in the cantina restroom.
it sounds like Budget has a phobia of Furbies.
I just do not like the Ewoks. I never did.
That
one shot where the Ewok gets blown up and his little buddy's all crying and shit. I laughed through that when I saw Empire. I laughed. I thought it was great.
Nope.
Not Empire, but Jedi. I laughed my ass off when I saw that. I thought it was wonderful. There's a reason Empire is my favorite movie because the bad guys win. It's awesome. Anyhow, we are digressing most heartily here. So Chicago on fire, probably going to be on fire again soon. I'm sure as Rose said, next week I'll come back and we'll be talking about Chicago again because you know what? We keep talking about Portland too. This is a piece from pjmedia.com by Victoria Taft from August 11th, 2020. Portland prosecutor likely to drop charges against rioters who injure cops, citing instinctive reaction to police. Well, we've heard it all now. Rioters have been given what is tantamount to carte blanche in Portland. It's open season on Portlanders, open season on cops, and open season on the rule of law. Scores of the 500 people who were arrested during the nearly 75 days of violent Portland riots will have their charges dropped by the new Black Lives Matter approved district attorney. Multnomah County District Attorney Mike Schmidt announced that his default position is not to prosecute, and that most crimes by rioters will be forgiven and forgotten. That list of crimes includes interfering with a police officer, disorderly conduct, and rioting. Multnomah, this is a tweet from Sergio Olmos. Multnomah DA Mike Schmidt on crimes that presumptively fall under this category: interfering with a police officer, disorderly conduct, criminal trespass, harassment, escape in the third degree, riot, sometimes in some circumstances. Attacks on police officers and resisting arrest will be scrutinized based on whether, and we're not making this up, police caused rioters to react because they used tear gas or other crowd control measures, causing rioters to instinctively lash out. The instinctive reaction of people who have been gassed repeatedly, who have been struck with kinetic projectile weapons, and who have seen other protesters arrested in ways they deeply disapprove of. He told Oregon Public Broadcasting that his attorneys will scrutinize every case to determine if the person's intent was to resist arrest or injure a police officer. Let's take a little look at this vidya.
As Multnomah County's district attorney, I acknowledge the deeply rooted emotions involved in the nightly demonstrations that have unfolded in our community in response to the murder of George Floyd. Policy acknowledges that the factors that lead to the commission of criminal activity during a protest are incredibly complex. The protesters are angry, yes, deeply frustrated with what they perceive to be structural inequities in our basic social fabrics. And this frustration can escalate to levels that violate the law. Some of those violations are impermissible by any standard, resulting in physical violence, injury, and worse. Others represent the instinctive reactions of people who have been gassed repeatedly, who have been struck with kinetic projectile weapons, and who have seen other protesters arrested in ways that they deeply disapprove of. This policy acknowledges that centuries of disparate treatment of our Black and brown communities have left deep wounds, and that the healing process will not be easy or quick.
So, yeah. Let's see. Let's continue. That's right. Schmidt basically said that if an assault on a police officer or resisting arrest occurred when police were clearing an area with tear gas, for example, that he would consider dropping those charges. We'll take a particularly hard look at resisting arrest and assault of a public safety officer if those cases occurred when an individual was being tear gassed or otherwise exposed to the use of force at the time of resistance. His staff plans to determine the intent with which the rioter used violence to determine whether he or she is worthy of prosecution or restorative justice. He told the local taxpayer-funded radio station that the presumption on a lot of these cases that are listed out there is that we won't prosecute. But if there are egregious circumstances or something about the case that stands out, we can always choose to prosecute. Schmidt told reporters at a news conference today that being caught up by police while simply protesting will not be prosecuted. Violating curfew during civil unrest will no longer be prosecuted. Good luck, Portland. The city is at 75 days of riots, and now most of the rioters won't see the inside of a courtroom, much less the inside of a jail cell. That means that there will be almost no disincentive to rioting. It's open season on Portland. This guy almost made it into Moron. Moron of the Week. It was a tough call, but I wanted to talk about this during the initial topics part of the show. So what do you guys think? Do you think that this is just simply being compassionate in understanding the needs and of the community and taking the sort of having a finger on the pulse of the community and knowing that what these heightened emotions are and how to respond during these trying times? Or do you think this is just saying, do whatever the hell you want?
If they're not going to enforce laws, my question, because Oregon has a lot of hunters, is there a bag limit or season on rioters? Is it going to be possession? versus daily, or is there any magazine and caliber restrictions on that particular hunting season?
Yeah, well, that's just it. They should be grateful that there's law enforcement, because if the citizens did take it into their own hands, they definitely wouldn't be as
Probably
nice
not
as
in
law
Portland.
enforcement. Here's the thing. Rioting is illegal and voluntary. So you chose to go commit a crime, and they're going to just, give them amnesty. That's BS.
People are not responsible for having to act out in such a fashion. They are just victims of their circumstance, and they have no other recourse but to rise up in a manner to get and act out to get their attention that they so desperately need. Where's your heart, Squib?
Remember when that old dude...
Excuse me, I gotta go puke.
Remember when that old dude was at the riot and the cops were walking forward and he was screaming at him, and one cop pushed him down and he fell and busted his head open?
Oh, you mean the guy that was scanning their radio frequencies?
Yeah, the guy that everybody, seemed to have a bleeding heart for. That's the same thing.
Yeah.
Don't go to a riot. If you don't want to get tear gassed by the cops, don't go to the riot. And the scariest thing about all of this is these are the people that are responsible for teaching your children too.
Yep.
So when you send your kid off to school, if they ever let school open back up again, the same type of government's going to be teaching your kid that they're racist.
Before we go any further, I want to address the super chat out there. Nighthawk Medic, thank you for the $5 super chat, sir. Says the bureaucracy is expanding to meet the needs of the bureaucracy. Tytler cycle is nearly completed. Everyone vote in November and encourage others. And I'll go one step further and say, don't vote by mail. No matter what you have to do to vote in person, vote in person. I've taken election day and the day after off. A, just so I can vote, and B, so I can be home in case of / when the civil unrest starts. So please continue, fellas. And Foss, don't you worry about my shopping habits. Speak Life says more like the escalation occurred once rioters found their targets and pursued violent engagement. Yes.
That's where once they start throwing bricks and Molotov cocktailing buildings and cars and whatnot, to me that has crossed into, especially the Molotovs, that is terrorism. I don't care if they're born here, born somewhere else. I think a 308 to the chest would calm those people down real quick.
Yeah.
Look, I don't have a problem with it. I get the whole, if Trump sends in the troops and he won't get reelected thing, I don't like it. But there's a certain point where you ask them to leave, you maybe arrest some people to make an example, you use less lethal things like tear gas and fire hoses, and then at a certain point...
Those are atrocities and human rights violations, though, Square.
Yeah, and then it's lethal force, especially when they're throwing Molotov cocktails and projectiles at, rocks, bricks, whatever it is, or shooting at you, or whatever it is. And, yeah, people can say, yeah, that's just so inhumane, but what they're doing is fine. Right.
People are fed up with this stuff. The people, a lot of it's mostly peaceful protests and, all these wonderful things that, Bernie Sanders revolution. The people who live in those neighborhoods who are paying those bills are all gone and not coming back. And all these places are going to crumble. So it's not like normal everyday people that are having their houses surrounded by an angry mob aren't aware that their government sent these people here. A lot of people are paying attention to this, and a lot of people, all the Chicago cops came out and said, please send in federal troops. And a number of times, aldermen and stuff like that are all getting cursed out by Beetlejuice. All over these other type of cities that people are flipping out. De Blasio and Cuomo won't let them do the 9/11 lights because
What?
because of the COVID. Yeah, the 9/11 lights that when they light the two lights up down at where
Yeah.
the buildings were. Yeah, they can't do that because that's you can't socially distance properly. They're blaming the COVID on that. That's why they're not having that ceremony.
But they can let Black Lives Matter protest through the streets of New York City and chain shut gates of Jewish gathering places, but they can't let the 9/11 memorials go on. Fuck de Blasio in his ass. There's my one.
On TV. That's why Cuomo was on TV begging to make rich people dinner. Please come back to the city, please. You ever seen? We all know politicians beg and are sleazy and scummy, but have you ever seen anything that pathetic? If you haven't seen that, go look at that. Governor Cuomo is begging people to come back to the city.
What a couple of pieces of shit.
In reference to your comment there, Budget, that particular politician would probably enjoy what you suggested.
Most likely.
Maybe we should come up with a different suggestion for him.
I would use a stick wrapped in barbed wire. That's what I would use to do that
kinky.
with. Probably.
He'd probably just think that's kinky.
Then give him a salt and vinegar enema. All right. Well, we got the Portland prosecutor deciding that he's not going to charge these people with the garbage that they're doing. Hopefully, well, it seems like the police in Indiana aren't being so stupid. This is a piece from Second Amendment Daily. It said police investigating viral video of BLM supporters threatening cars with guns in Indianapolis. Indianapolis, Indiana. The left is hypocritical. Guns are bad because only violent, angry, racist white men want them. Everybody else wants to live in a world of rainbows and butterflies and hugs. Until it comes time to implement leftist ideas. Then it's totally fine for all of them to have guns and to use them. That's their right, they're quick to remind us. To which we reply, you're welcome. But police have gotten involved after the following pictures and videos emerged from yet another peaceful protest. This one in Indianapolis, Indiana. Check out this 1-minute video.
Get that baby! Get that baby! Well, believe it or not, he's so sleep. He can make sure, but he ain't gonna hit nobody. Come on, buddy. Don't be stupid. Guys, jump that water. If you don't know,
So there they are, Black Lives Matter protesters in Indianapolis, Indiana, not only blocking traffic, but doing so at gunpoint. So that's just
video.
Wonderful, isn't it?
Run that video back to the 25-second mark, real quick. Please.
All right. Well, that was 26, but yeah. Okay. 25 second.
Yeah, it's a little delayed on the. I can't see it until I'm watching it on YouTube. But you see the guy standing there, right
Which
there,
guy?
bam, in the blue shirt.
This guy?
Yeah, go back to the guy in the blue shirt right there. It's like 25 seconds or something like that. Right there, bam.
Yeah.
Back it up just another quick second and see what he's got. See that little girl right there?
Yep.
Remember the video I put out of the the little kids with the F the police sign? And I told you, I said they're gonna bring their children to these riots.
Yeah.
Now they got a gun pulled on that truck, and that truck's potentially gonna crash through a crowd or get attacked. And look what that dirtbag is doing.
Yep.
He's taking his little kid toward the trouble.
Yep.
This is the kind of people that we're dealing with. This dirtbag right here brought his child to a riot. And please, there's nothing peaceful about any of these Black Lives Matter. None of them. I don't care if it's noon and grandma's standing there by herself with one sign. That's not a peaceful protest anymore. Their whole basis for protest is garbage, and this guy's got his child right there.
Yep.
That's where when they start pulling the guns on the vehicles, that's where I think having one of an AR or an AK pistol with a short barrel that you can maneuver inside the vehicle starts becoming the idea behind those starts becoming much more understandable, because a 16-incher with a full stock might be hard to maneuver, but 11-incher with basically no stock on it, you could probably shoulder without hitting the windshield. So that jerk off standing in front with the pistol, if all of a sudden you lit him up and floored it, you'd probably get him and who knows how many others before they scattered like roaches.
Yeah, but do you really want to be firing an AR pistol from the confines of a car?
No, I don't.
If it's that or having bullets come the other direction, they haven't yet started opening up through the windshield on the drivers, but if they're at low ready, ready to shoot you, at some point you're gonna have to decide which direction is the slug gonna go. I mean, yeah, that would suck. Your hearing would be, for lack of a better way of putting it, shot. But that might be your only choice to survival at some point.
Well, they make more than just AR pistols. There's
Nighthawk Medic brings up a very good point. Says also you can use the reverse gear and not get thrown in jail for 300 years with a lefty prosecutor, which right now, yeah. Unless you have to turn it into a two-way range, don't. I have to agree to that. On the other hand, I agree with your original assertion that the fellow that brings his kid to a protest like this is an absolute dumbass. Unless you really don't like the kid, in which case, hey, go right ahead. But, yeah, stupid. So they're not only blocking traffic, they're blocking traffic at gunpoint. And then when you try to go around them, they go run in front of you. Unbelievable.
They're doing way more than what the bad thing, I'm not going to mention it, with children. They're also poisoning all these children's mind.
Oh yeah.
When you go back to school, when these kids go back to school, they're going to be learning race theory. They're going to be learning about 1619 Project. They're going to be taking the I can't think of what the place is called. The African American History Museum. It calls whiteness, and teaching it to your elementary school kids. And right there, bam, right there. There's that guy with you. No, that's not. We're not going to do that to kids. That guy's got his kid at a riot.
Yep. Well, not all the police and not all law enforcement are being idiots about this. Unfortunately, it's just the people in charge of them. Because in Chicago, anyway, the Fraternal Order of Police drafts a letter to President Trump asking for federal help to combat violence. This is from July 18th. So it's a little bit old. But as you can see, the Chicago's Fraternal Order of Police is asking for federal help. But of course, you know who doesn't want it. 3 guesses. 3 guesses. The first 2 don't count, although I will give you a hint.
Since it's 3 guesses, isn't that Beetlejuice?
No, don't say it like that. I don't want her to come. Oh, wait, she'll come to your house because you're the one saying it. Go right ahead. Yes, absolutely right. Mayor Stink Eye, Mayor Chameleon. She can look at both sides of the issue. She doesn't have to turn her head to follow a tennis match. Yes, Mayor Lightfoot is the one resisting getting help, which her city obviously needs based upon the last few days of basically turning it into a free-for-all ransack, one free shopping spree. Grab as much as you can. Disgusting, but there it is.
They were just looking for bread and that Louis Vuitton, remember?
Yeah. That's where they were going to get bread and baby formula at Macy's when they cleared it out. Yeah. Well, in other news that is not riot related, though will probably cause some eventually, we have a presumptive nominee for the Democratic ticket for vice president, folks. Apparently, Uncle Touchy took samples of all the contenders and decided that Kamala Harris smelled the best, and she passed the sniff test. Because this piece from AmmoLand from August 11th by David Codrea says, Biden naming Harris as VP pick poses special threat to gun owners. Because remember, folks, old Kamala Harris vowed that if she, back during the Democrat primaries, vowed to take executive action if she's elected president and not even bother waiting for Congress to get rid of yo guns. I have the great honor to announce that I've picked Kamala Harris, a fearless fighter for the little guy and one of the country's finest public servants, as my running mate, Democrat presidential candidate Joe Biden announced Tuesday on Twitter, ending months of speculation on who he would choose. Back when Kamala was Attorney General, she worked closely with Beau. I watched as they took on the big banks, lifted up working people, and protected women and kids from abuse. I was proud then, and I'm proud now to have her as my partner in this campaign. How about when she was keeping people beyond the dates of their sentences so that the state could have free labor fighting fires? How about when she sent a homeless mother to jail on a piddly-ass marijuana charge and laughed about it? Yeah, she's really upholding women and fighting for the little guy. Harris worked on more issues than that, paying special attention to infringements on the right to keep and bear arms. And while none of the names recently speculated on, as in the running, would have been anything but a doctor... God damn, David, that's a hell of a sentence. Harris worked on more issues than that, paying special attention to infringements on the right to keep and bear arms. And while none of the names recently speculated on, as in the running, would have been anything but a doctrinaire enemy of gun owner rights, Harris has a history that makes her especially dangerous. We know the Democrat platform would mandate many firearms edicts, as would the infringements outlined by Biden on his campaign website. Among the many firearms edicts Harris also demanded when she ran for president herself, as documented by On the Issues, were two huge ones that would have made millions of gun owners felons for defying and forced them to make the choice between surrendering or resisting. Mandatory buyback for 5 million assault weapons and executive action on gun control if Congress won't do it. Those are the proposals of a tyrant. Noting her history on guns, that should surprise no one. The many infringements Harris has demanded over the years while claiming that she is a gun owner to feign credibility with the ignorant have given plenty of warning, including, as California State Attorney General, she petitioned the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to review and reverse its decision in Peruta v. County of San Diego that requiring good cause for concealed carry permit was unconstitutional. She also attempted to restrict lawful handgun sales by reinterpreting a 15-year-old statute. Further, she was named in a lawsuit by the Calguns Foundation on First Amendment grounds because firearms dealers in the state are no longer allowed to share either images of handguns or the word which describes them best: guns. American Thinker noted a Ninth Circuit decision allowing Ms. Harris to collect confidential taxpayer information about donors to charities and nonprofit advocacy organizations, all without probable cause and a warrant. A chilling prospect to grassroots groups opposed to progressive politics. As usual, gun owner Harris is not anti-gun as long as she and her allies control them. Showing the obligatory elitist hypocrisy gun-grabbing politicos reserve for themselves, she has made full use of taxpayer-funded armed police protection, even in situations where the deployment of municipal resources for state officials has been deemed unprecedented. Now that she's on Biden's ticket, the Secret Service will be keeping her protected while she works to undermine the ability of all Americans to protect themselves. We could go on with the other disarmament measures Harris would impose if given the power. NRA documented many, including banning semi-auto rifle imports, attacking the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act, meaning suing gun manufacturers out of existence for criminal abuse of their products, imposing more restrictions on firearm transfers, and enacting near-universal background checks, providing a mechanism to later impose registration and confiscation by executive order. These are all things all the Democrat candidates wanted to do to us. But as alluded to in the title to this article, Harris includes a special threat few of the others were talking about until she brought it up. Kamala Harris is proposing a new kind of red flag law to take guns away from racists, Breitbart reported a year ago. It's part of her plan to disarm violent hate. All without due process. Because remember, folks, by the way, a racist is whoever they says is racist. Remember that. All without due process. And guess who gets to determine what constitutes racism and who qualifies as a prohibited person, subject to orders you won't even know about until the confiscation raid? Harris being the VP choice is a direct result of pressure by the left as it furiously works to further divide the country across racial lines. Failing to select a black woman means you will lose the election. A letter signed by more than 100 self-appointed black male leaders threatened the Biden campaign. Black women are defining the future of politics, so it's time you let one define the future of your campaign. Agree with Dr. King that content of character is what should matter, and prepare to be smeared as a hater, along with risking everything that will happen after that. So there you have it. The next Democrat vice presidential candidate is a checklist checkmark making affirmative action hire. So there you go, folks. She checks
And
both the
Aussie
woman
and
and the black and the American Indian buttons, because she's more American Indian than Pocahontas is.
Oh, she's
And,
Indian,
Aussie-
like India.
Oh, my bad.
Veteran Ozzy and I were both saying it out
Oh,
in the
that's-
chat. Pretty sure she was put on the ticket because, as VP, there was a strong chance she wouldn't have been able to make it as the presidential candidate. But that's where Biden is either going to be declared incompetent or is just going to kick the bucket,
Yeah.
whether it's Hillary style or natural causes, before one term is up. Putting Harris, in as president so that she has executive order power.
These people are all clown shoes. Kamala Harris dropped out before the first vote was cast.
Yep.
That's how unpopular she was. But they had a chance to make her the presidential candidate, and no one voted for her at all. Period. Nobody. And they're so stupid. They scream about racism and gender and patriarchy.
Exactly right.
They put an old rich white man with racist friends, like documented racist friends,
Yep.
as their presidential. They're all clown shoes.
And who has
They're
said
all-
some serious racist shit to boot.
Yeah, I was gonna say racist friends. He has proven himself to be, extremely racist himself. So not only are his friends terrible, but he's terrible.
Kamala said, I'm sorry, Kamala said, I pronounced it wrong on purpose, yes, that she believed Tara Reid, that she believes that Joe Biden is a sexual assaulter, but she couldn't wait to get on that ticket.
Nope. Nope. Absolutely not. They decry racism, they decry sexism, but yet they pick a candidate simply because of her color and her gender. Period. That's the only reason she's on the ticket.
Look, they do the same thing that we do. We talk about the far left and not being able to reach them, so don't have the gun argument with them. Talk to the people in the middle, the people that are in the fence or don't really know any better. And whether they like guns or not, they'll realize, hey, it's freedom. They go after those same fish. And when they call everybody racist, they know none of us over here are paying attention because they're stupid. We make fun of them. But then that one person will be like, oh man, that's crazy, racist. I'm not down for that. Oh, I'll stay away from that person. Well, they're not going to, a presidential candidate's not going to call somebody racist on national television and just be making it up. Come on.
Nighthawk Medic says, I don't care if the communist is blue. She's a communist. And she's going to start unraveling our nation right along Obama's pathway. Exactly. Exactly. If she were a conservative, if she were someone who loved this country and wanted to preserve, protect, and defend this country like her oath would require her to, I'd vote for her. I don't give a shit if she's black, brown, puce, chartreuse, polka dot, plaid. I don't care if she's man, woman, or frickin' doorknob. If you're going to do what's right, I'll vote for you. But the fact is, she's a damn communist, just like Joe.
Well, no, the media, Brian Stelter told me that she was a pragmatic moderate. And she did say she'd give the Congress 100 days to make a decision on guns before she banned them. That's a pretty pragmatic moderate, if you ask me.
Here we go. Let's just... Oh, you already put him in timeout, because I was just going to swing the ban hammer. Hey, folks. By the way, as I said earlier, maybe some of you didn't catch this. I'm okay with other opinions. Totally want them. Totally great. Be respectful. Don't be a jackass, because jackassery will get you booted. Flat out.
Well, yeah, Triggs, we had someone out there trying to troll. That's where I was, rather than just ban them straight off, I was challenging them to back up their statements. But if they weren't going to, then I was going to swing the hammer myself. But I usually try to give them an opportunity to back up their statements first.
I have low tolerance for that kind of garbage. I just got around to reading some of the stuff that he was posting. What a maroon! What an ignoramus! Anyhow, let me get down here. Look at. So trying to. Yep. Okay. All right. Caught up on the chat. All right. So yeah, there we have Kamala, whatever you want to call her, Ms. Harris. Or I guess she's married, so Mrs. Harris or whatever. Anyhow, there we have the first affirmative action hire as a Democrat nominee for presumptive, because the convention hasn't happened yet. Shoot, she could go on the top slot. The Democrats could oust old Joe and try and put her forth in the running. So never know.
One last gem about our girl. Right after she dropped out, she did an interview, and she had the nerve to say that basically systemic racism and sexism kept her from getting voted in. Hey, dummy, you were in a Democratic primary, so only the Democrats were voting for you.
Exactly. I see the trolls are out in force tonight. Awesome. Slap them down, folks. Again, if you want to have a differing opinion, that's awesome. Again, I like to have that, bouncing ideas off of each other. Don't be a dick. If you're being a dick, you'll get booted. It's that simple. And you guys are being dicks. So, where's my next El Topico? Speaking of Kamala, this is a piece talking about her from bearingarms.com. This is from August 11th by Cam Edwards. Kamala Harris doesn't think you have the right to own a gun. We know that Joe Biden's vice presidential pick wasn't going to be an NRA member or a Second Amendment supporter, but that doesn't mean he had to pick someone who actually argued in 2008 that Washington, D.C.'s ban on handguns didn't violate the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. As district attorney in San Francisco, Kamala Harris signed on to an amicus brief filed with the Supreme Court in the Heller case, arguing that for nearly 70 years, courts have consistently sustained criminal firearms laws against Second Amendment challenges by holding that, inter alia, 1, that the Second Amendment provides only a militia-related right to bear arms, 2, The Second Amendment does not apply to legislation passed by state or local governments. And 3, the restrictions to bear a reasonable relationship to protecting public safety and thus do not violate a personal constitutional right. The brief, written by Adrian Fenty, at the time the Attorney General for Washington, D.C., urged the Supreme Court to uphold the district's ban on handgun ownership, as well as a firearm storage law requiring guns to be kept locked up or disassembled with ammunition stored separately. To do otherwise, claimed Fenty, Harris, and several other prosecutors, would create a broad private right to possess any firearm that is a lineal descendant of a founding-era weapon and that is in common use with a military application today. Create a right. In other words, Kamala Harris told the Supreme Court that Americans didn't have an individual right to possess a firearm that is in common use, turning a right of the people into a privilege to be exercised by a chosen few. Harris lost the argument in 2008, but she's been opposing the right to keep and bear arms ever since. As district attorney, Harris demanded an end to gun shows at the Cow Palace Convention Center just outside of the San Francisco city limits, and as California's attorney general, she not only defended the state's gun control laws in court, but according to California Rifle and Pistol Association President Chuck Michel, she failed to properly oversee several databases that the state uses to determine whether or not someone is eligible to own a firearm. Not one, but 2 separate reports from the California State Auditor have found serious problems with the way the DOJ processes mental health records to determine a person's firearm eligibility. Despite these multiple admonitions, Harris has failed to fix the problems. A 2013 report from the California State Auditor found that under Harris, the DOJ had not sufficiently reached out to the courts or mental health facilities to remind them to promptly report required information, which, if done, would have allowed the DOJ to determine when dangerously mental ill persons were in possession of firearms or attempting to purchase them. Additionally, this report found that key decisions such as whether a person is prohibited are left to staff whose work does not receive a supervisory review. Because of these issues, justice cannot identify all armed prohibited persons in California as effectively as it should, and the information it uses to ensure public safety by confiscating firearms is incomplete. As U.S. Senator, Kamala Harris has backed bans on so-called assault weapons, universal background check mandates, and more, but it was her short-lived presidential campaign that really allowed her to once again tout her anti-gun agenda. Harris proclaimed that if she was elected president, she would enact gun control with or without the support of Congress. 5 million assault weapons are on the streets of America today. During the course of this debate, 8 people will die from gun violence. We need action. And Congress has had years to act and failed because they do not have the courage. When I'm elected, I'll give them 100 days to pull their act together, put a bill on my desk for signature, and if they don't, I will take executive action and put in place a comprehensive background check requirement and ban the importation of assault weapons into our country, because it is time to act. Expect the media to highlight the fact that Harris says she owns a gun in order to portray her as some sort of moderate on the issue of the right to keep and bear arms. She's not a moderate. She's a hypocrite. Here's what she told a CNN town hall audience last April. I am a gun owner, and I own a gun for probably the reason a lot of people do, for personal safety, the California Democrat said Thursday. I was a career prosecutor. Remember, as a career prosecutor, Harris argued that you and I don't have a right to own a handgun for personal safety, and that local governments should be able to ban you and I from legally possessing one. As a member of law enforcement, of course, Harris would have been exempt from the very gun bans she wanted to keep in place in Washington, D.C., but she wanted local governments to be able to strip you of your ability to legally own a firearm in self-defense. Harris may own a gun, but that doesn't mean she believes you have the right to own one too. So, yeah, as if any of that came as a surprise to most of us, right? Harris was one of the slew of Democrat candidates who were campaigning on and trying to out-gun control each other. So, yeah. Speak Life says, we need really solid constitutional sheriffs to stand between us and unconstitutional government bans, etc. You're absolutely right, we do. Looks like some of the trolls have been thrown over the bridge and swept downstream, so that's cool. Seven Wonder says, sure, opinions are fine. Spamming and outright lies, not so much. Exactly.
They're not trying to win this election. And I know a lot of people say I'm crazy and think I'm conspiracy theory and all that. The Democrats are not trying to win this election. They know.
Why do you say that?
They're clear that they looked at the economy. They looked at all the stuff that Donald Trump has accomplished in his first 3 years of being a president. They looked at all the rallies. They looked at all the Twitter followers and all that kind of stuff and realized that they were losing. They weren't going to win this election. So there's no candidate that they could, decent candidate that they might have a future in, that's why they gave us this clown car. Kamala Harris was picked for that exact purpose. She said she's that affirmative action pick. If you question her in any way, shape, or form, you will be labeled a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a bigot, and everything in the world. You'll be fired from your job. You'll be shunned from your neighborhood. You'll be banned from all these platforms. Joe Biden is going to do whatever he's told. So, I mean, everybody can clearly see that the man is not well. So they're dragging him out there, torturing this man, because they know they're not going to win. And what are they going to do? Put Joe Biden in president? What if he lives for 25 more years? You know, and they got to deal with they got to figure out a way to get Joe Biden out of office. You know, they don't want to deal with that. They just want to make it so when they don't win, you are a racist, you are a sexist, Donald Trump stole the election, Vladimir Putin, Black Lives. They just want to blow this thing apart. That's why they got look, if a gay guy in DuPont Circle had a cop with his knee on his neck, there'd be Gay Lives Matter all over the place, and Pete Buttigieg would be the vice president. This is all a setup.
Well, go ahead, Squib.
Something that I remember during the whole bump stock thing and the whole take the guns due process later was all the people that said that they can't vote for Trump, and then they were saying we had it better under Obama. And you know, I know you've made the comment about voting for a Democrat for governor of Ohio because your rhino governor is that big of a POS. But I'm just wondering.
Yeah, we're going to talk about him next.
Well, I'm just wondering how many pro-liberty, conservative, pro-Second Amendment people are either going to say, well, I'm just plain not going to vote. I'm going to throw my vote away voting for the third party, which isn't viable at this point. Or they are going to vote with this scumbag because they don't want Trump back in office because they still have a sore butthole over the bump stock thing or the statement that he made that he never acted on. So I don't know. It's just something I keep in the back of my mind is every vote matters, every vote counts, and every vote's needed. And even then, there's no guarantee. And I'm the one that's always out there preaching about the lesser of two evils. But I think some people out there are just, if they stick to what they said, they're not thinking strategically. This is more than just a 2A issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, since you brought him up,
You sound so enthused.
That's just real quick before we bring up your next topic.
yes,
That's where come November, I foresee no matter who wins the popular, who wins electoral. I see November once the results come out, things are going to get even nastier than they are now.
absolutely right. Been saying that for months.
Okay, I just wanted to get that out. You can move on to
Stock up
your
on
next-
everything you
Sorry
think
about
you
that.
might need to get through the winter, folks, because you might not be able to get it come November. But that's
Right.
another show.
Okay, I got that off my chest. Thank you, Budget.
Okay. Speaking of Ohio and Ohio's wonderful rhino, Republican in name only, for those who don't know what that means, Governor Mike DeWine. Ah, yes. This is from the Daily Caller. Opinion. Bar. Ohio governor pushes gun control agenda again. It's former Representative Bob Barr from August 10th, 2020. Politicians love anniversaries, especially those recalling tragic events. Every time an anniversary of such a public event occurs, whether the 1st, 5th, 10th, or 25th, some politician will rush to remind the public of the past event as a way to position himself or herself as a true leader by calling for the government to do whatever it is they want done that would have prevented the prior tragedy, or which they claim will prevent its recurrence. This past week, amidst the myriad problems relating to the COVID pandemic and the recurring violence destroying lives, property, and businesses in cities across the country, Republican Ohio Governor Mike DeWine used the bully pulpit of his office to again call for the state legislature to pass gun control measures he has long championed. The timing for his latest call was the anniversary of a shooting spree last August 4th by an individual outside a Dayton, Ohio bar who fatally shot 9 people before he was shot dead by police. In the immediate aftermath of that 2019 shooting, DeWine issued a call for the legislature to pass a long list of gun control measures, including many that bore no relationship to the manner by which the Dayton shooter, a 26-year-old white male with Antifa sympathies, was able to obtain the firearm he used to carry out his horrific crime. Included in DeWine's proposal were measures constituting what has become known in recent years as a red flag law. Such a law empowers law enforcement officers and other individuals, including friends or relatives of a gun owner, to obtain a court order directing police to seize all firearms possessed by the person against whom the order is directed, based on allegations that the individual poses a threat to himself or others. A number of states already have passed such measures, despite their constitutional infirmities. DeWine's initial legislative package also called for what would amount to a statewide universal background check system for virtually all firearms transfers, including those between private, law-abiding citizens. By the way, those of you who been watching the show or been following the channel for a while know I'm absolutely against red flag laws. As a matter of fact, I went to the State House at a rally and spoke on the matter, gave a speech on the matter. I'm sure if you check the channel, I'm not going to throw out a link to it right here. If one of my mods wants to throw that link out, awesome. If not, awesome. But yeah, go ahead and check that out if you wish. Thus far, Ohio's legislature has shown little interest in passing such far-reaching legislation, despite DeWine's pressing. In the face of this legislative resistance, DeWine later in 2019 backed away from some of the more problematic provisions in what he cleverly titled his Strong Ohio Bill, including those that would have directly and formally established a red flag law. However, the details of his proposed law clearly move toward just such a law, and he continues to press for other problematic provisions, including opening the door to a potential firearms registry for transfers between private persons. Like many gun control advocates holding public office, DeWine appears drawn to the limelight rather than the hard work of dealing with the legislature and the public to enact meaningful measures that would address actual problems, but still within both the letter and intent of the Second Amendment and other provisions in our Constitution's Bill of Rights. In fact, hidden within his proposals are some measures that could provide the basis for such action. If instead of grandstanding before the media on the anniversary of a tragedy that already constituted a criminal act, the governor worked hard to craft more limited legislation and budgetary measures that address known deficiencies in laws designed already to keep firearms out of the hands of persons not allowed under long-standing federal, I'm assuming federal law, to possess them, he likely would have far more success. But then again, that is much harder than calling a news conference and restating the time-worn trope that doing nothing is simply not an option, as he did last week. So, yes, our allegedly Republican governor is, among his tyrannical mask orders and other stuff related to the Coco Roro, is once again pushing his gun control agenda. I would tell you right now, folks, one term. One term. We need to get his ass out in the primaries, and if not, don't care. I'll vote Democrat. I'll vote for a purple-assed baboon before I pull the lever for Mike DeWine again. I held my nose and made my mark for Mike DeWine when I should have been voting for Mary Taylor, but in its wisdom, the Ohio Republican electorate decided that DeWine was just the stuff. No, he's a piece of shit. He is not a Republican. So voting for DeWine is voting for a Democrat anyway. At least if we vote a Democrat in instead of DeWine, our Republican House and Senate might actually go against what they're saying instead of having to march in lockstep with the party. Now, I know that could be said for the national stage too, but I think the politics play out a little bit differently on the national stage. I could be wrong, though.
I think that it's very, very super important that we have the red wave this election season 2020. If not, we're in a whole bunch of trouble. But I say that with the caveat that everybody knows I hate all the Republicans too. And when you vote them in, let them know as they're like setting their desk up, hey dude, this is your one shot. If we can't primary you, we're going to go and vote for the Democrats. You know, they're burning the city down and we paid for it. So if you're not going to do what we brought you in here to do, we're going to go burn the cities down too with them. You know, just let them know that they're on very, very short leash.
So, yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that. We need to let them know they're on a short leash. You know, it sickens me the fact that if I have to, I'll pull a lever for a Democrat. But
look, there's a bunch of Republican candidates sitting all over the country right now in their recliners, laughing, smoking cigars, going, I got it in the bag. The current mayor, the current governor, the current dog catcher came out on national TV and said, let them burn the city down. There's no way I'm gonna, and they think that when they do win and they come in, that they don't have to do anything because they got it made. What are you going to do? Vote for the Democrats? You see what they just did? Yeah, we're going to vote for the Democrats. It's exactly what we're going to do. You got one shot at this, pal.
They need to be held accountable. And the only thing that matters to them is the vote. That and money and the power they get, but the votes are how they get that money and power.
Yeah, that's votes they can't manipulate, matter to them. The ones they can, they don't really care about because then they'll just, make those ones come out the way they want.
Keep in mind, folks, me saying that DeWine has to go, even saying that is a risk for me since I'm a government employee. If you don't think DeWine, if, somehow he could actually hear my words and pay any attention whatsoever to it, if you don't think he could decide to be petty and spiteful and have the Department of Youth Services hand down an edict to my agency to shut me up, think again, because it could happen. So, but I don't give a shit. Some things are more important, and this is one of them. This guy is a piece of crap. He is a tyrant. He is not a Republican, and the sooner the Republican electorate in Ohio wakes up to that fact, the better off we're all going to be, folks. One term for DeWine. And that's all I have to say about that. In other news, let's end the topics portion of this on a high note. Let us end this on a very, very high note. This is something... There are two things. Yes. There are two things that I need to congratulate Calaveras 32 Special, the tactical pickle himself, on. Number one, last weekend he got married. So, congratulations on that. But today, or well, I guess technically yesterday since it's 1 a.m. here on the East Coast, California had its high-capacity magazine ban overturned yet again. This is from the Las Vegas Sun. Ninth Circuit ends California ban on high-capacity magazines. This is from today. Sacramento, California. A 3-judge panel of the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals on Friday threw out California's ban on high-capacity ammunition magazines, saying the law violates the U.S. Constitution's protection of the right to bear firearms. Even well-intentioned laws must pass constitutional muster, Appellate Judge Kenneth Lee wrote for the panel's majority. California's ban on magazines holding more than 10 bullets strikes at the core of the Second Amendment, the right to armed self-defense. He noted that California passed the law in the wake of heart-wrenching and highly publicized mass shootings, but said that isn't enough to justify a ban whose scope is so sweeping that half of all magazines in America are now unlawful to own in California. California Attorney General Javier Becerra's office said he is reviewing the decision and he remains committed to using every tool possible to defend California's gun safety laws and keep our communities safe. That's funny, a tool talking about using tools. Gun owners cannot immediately rush to buy high-capacity magazines because a stay issued by the lower court judge remains in place. For those who don't remember, the original time when this ban was originally overthrown by, was it Benitez? Is that the guy's name? The judge's name?
Yes, it's Federal Judge Benitez in San Diego, I believe, Southern California.
Yeah, he originally overturned this. And for a glorious week known as Freedom Week, Californians could buy, and did buy, many of them bought tons of high capacity, with the rest of us, standard capacity magazines, until the Becerra's office filed this appeal to the Ninth Circuit, at which point Benitez issued a stay of his original ruling until this could play itself out in the court system.
Well, how many times can this bounce back and forth before it's said and done? Like, can this just...
One, possibly two more times.
So it can't go on for perpetuity, like 5,000 more times.
No, one, possibly two more times, and we'll get to that. But Becerra did not say if the state would seek a further delay of Friday's ruling to prevent an immediate buying spree if the lower court judge ends that restriction. Gun groups estimated that more than 1 million high-capacity ammunition magazines may have legally flooded into California during a one-week window before the judge stayed his ruling 3 years ago. Becerra also did not say if he would ask a larger 11-judge appellate panel to reconsider the ruling by 3 judges, or if he would appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Governor Gavin Newsom, who championed the magazine ban when he was lieutenant governor, defended the law as a vital gun violence prevention measure. I think it was sound, I think it was right, and the overwhelming majority of Californians agree when they supported a ballot initiative that we put forth, he said Friday. California Rifle and Pistol Association attorney Chuck Michel called Friday's decision a huge victory for gun owners and the right to choose to own a firearm to defend your family, while a group that favors firearms restrictions called it dangerous and expects it will be overturned. The ruling has national implications because other states have similar restrictions, though it immediately applies only to western states under the appeals court's jurisdiction. Gun rights groups have been trying to get such cases before the nation's high court now that it has a more conservative majority. Yeah, and see where that's gotten us. The decision, written by an appellate judge appointed by President Donald Trump, should put gun safety advocates across the country on high alert, said Giffords Law Center litigation director Hannah Shearer. These judges are gaining potentially irreversible inroads on our appellate courts. Good. However, the Supreme Court's majority in June declined to consider several challenges to federal and state gun control laws, including Massachusetts' ban on large-capacity ammunition magazines. Aside from the magazine ban itself, Michelle and the unaffiliated Second Amendment Foundation said the case has legal implications for other gun restrictions should it reach the justices because it could allow the court to clarify an obscure legal debate over what standard of review should be used. That's hardly an obscure legal debate. That is a very important legal debate. The Supreme Court seems inclined to do away with the complicated subjective tests that many courts have wrongly applied in Second Amendment cases in favor of a clearer, more objective, originalist approach that considers the text, history, and tradition of a law to determine what infringements might be tolerated, Michelle said in an email. Friday's ruling was a fractured decision partly because of that issue. 2 of the 3 judges voted to toss out the state's ban, while the 3rd judge dissented. U.S. District Court Judge Barbara Lynn of Texas, who had been named the third judge on the appellate panel, said the majority's ruling conflicts with decisions in 6 other federal appellate courts across the nation and with a 2015 ruling by a different panel of the Ninth Circuit itself. She said she would have upheld California's law based on that precedent. This ruling is an extreme outlier given those earlier decisions, said Eric Tershwell, managing director for Everytown Law, the litigation team affiliated with Everytown for Gun Safety, i.e. Mike Bloomberg, that favors firearms restrictions. That's an understatement. He said he expects a larger Ninth Circuit panel to correct this erroneous, dangerous, and out-of-step decision. Opponents argued unsuccessfully that larger capacity magazines are not needed for self-protection. The Second Amendment does not empower private citizens to arm themselves with weapons of war. Actually, it does. Look at U.S. v. Miller, said Jonathan Lowy of the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence. Friday's decision upholds a 2017 ruling by San Diego-based U.S. District Judge Roger Benitez, who blocked a new law that would have barred gun owners from possessing magazines holding more than 10 bullets. But he and the appeals court went further by declaring unconstitutional a state law that had prohibited buying or selling such magazines since 2000. That law had let those who had the magazines before then keep them, but barred new sales or imports. So, enjoy it while you can, Californians. By the way, Palmetto State Armory is taking orders for high-capacity, quote-unquote, magazines for Californians. They just won't ship unless and until this is settled as to whether or not they're going to lift the injunction. But you can go ahead and pre-order now if you wish.
Yeah, that's for the one that wrote the majority was a Trump appointee. The one that voted with him was a Bush appointee. The one that consented was a Clinton appointee.
What a shock.
Right. That's for, and the organization that brought, funded, and pursued the case is non-NRA affiliated, but NRA is already on national media claiming responsibility for this particular win. Again, what a shock.
The NRA is claiming responsibility for this?
On national media, yeah.
Did they have anything to do with this?
Nope. Not as far as I know.
Yeah, I thought this was a Second Amendment Foundation case.
Yeah. It's a Second Amendment and...
I'm sure Cal Guns.
Yeah, Cal
and the
Guns,
California Rifle Pistol Association.
Yeah, California Rifle and Pistol. Those were the 3 that funded that particular lawsuit. But that's for if you're listening to like MSNBC, their blips that they did on it on what was our 6 o'clock news, it was NRA taking credit.
Wow, what a they're starting to make themselves irrelevant. See last week's
that's for
see last week's show for why. But I hope that over the next day or so, maybe by Monday at the latest, I hope Judge Benitez lifts his stay and you guys have another Freedom Week or day or month or hopefully forever. But I suspect Becerra is not going to let this go. I suspect he's going to ask for an en banc hearing of the Ninth Circuit, trump up some sort of pretext to make that happen. And since the Ninth Circuit is still majority liberal, I suspect that this ruling will be overturned and the ban will be reinstated. Then it will be up to the those who are funding the lawsuit to decide whether or not they want to put this before SCOTUS. So at this point, there's a couple of options. Becerra could decide, okay, I'm done. I don't think that's going to happen.
He's not going to give up.
He could say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and press this, and the Ninth Circuit say, no, we're not going to hear it en banc, which ain't going to happen. The Ninth Circuit could hear it en banc and uphold the ruling, which ain't going to happen. The Ninth Circuit could hear it en banc and then overturn this ruling, which is what I suspect will happen. And then it's up to SAF, Cal Guns, et cetera, the plaintiffs, to listen, Kat. You are being a pain in my butt. They're going. I suspect it's going to get heard en banc. It's going to get overturned en banc, and then it's up to the plaintiffs as to whether or not they want to pursue it to SCOTUS. And at this point, it's a roll of the dice as to whether or not SCOTUS is going to hear it. That'll depend upon whether or not Trump gets reelected, and then how soon Ginsburg either retires or dies, and Trump gets to appoint another Supreme Court justice, which would make the balance of the court 6-3, or 5-4 if you count Roberts as a liberal, which anymore I do.
That's where, and with the Benitez lifts that stay, that's where what I was going to, part of why he implemented his stay on the decision that he made previously was there was already noise that if it went to to the 9th, which obviously it did, that they were going to rule as anyone who purchased during that week those magazines would be illegal. Such were only the ones that were in the state before was 2000 when the ban went into place in the first place would be legal. He implemented his stay with the verbiage that anything was bought during that week would be grandfathered. So I don't know if he's going to lift that, because I don't know if he's going to want to risk that grandfather clause being null and void and having a million magazines in the state all of a sudden become illegal.
Yeah, 7, I agree. 7 says, SCOTUS refusing to hear the last group of 10 2A cases still angers me. Yes, and I think that is it doesn't anger me, it enrages me, but again, as I've said before, I lay that at Roberts' feet. I think the rest of them knew that Roberts would vote with the libs. As dumb as it is, and as dumb as this magazine ban is, I'm glad to see that at least for now, there's a glimmer of hope for those of you stuck behind enemy lines in the lands ruled by the Ninth Circuit. As dumb as they are. And speaking of dumb...
And now prepare yourself for another tale of stupidity in this episode of Moron of the Week!
First up for Moron of the Week... Remember, we're talking about all this looting and riots and basically ransacking of downtown Chicago? Well, the Black Lives Matter chapter of the Chicago Black Lives Matter organizer, well, had something to say about that. This is from, who's it from? The New York Post. Black Lives Matter organizer calls Chicago looting reparations, by George Fitzgibbon from August 11, 2020. A Chicago Black Lives Matter organizer defended the widespread weekend looting in the heart of the Windy City as reparations. I don't care if somebody decides to loot a Gucci's or a Macy's or a Nike, because that makes sure that that person eats. That makes sure that that person has clothes. What are they going to do, eat shoes? Ariel Atkins said at a rally outside the South Loop police station Monday, local outlets reported. That's a reparation, Atkins said. Anything they want to take it, because these businesses have insurance. She also criticized the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who took to Twitter early Monday to denounce the pillaging, robbing, and looting as humiliating, embarrassing, and morally wrong. Wow, Jesse Jackson had a conscience? Good for him. Jesse Jackson has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, Atkins shot back. Jesse Jackson was not there for the creation of Black Lives Matter. Jesse Jackson can keep his opinions to himself. Got to remember, folk, Black Lives Matter is created by a bunch of Marxists. And, robbing from the rich and redistributing the wealth, well, that's straight up Karl Marx. The rally was held in the wake of a violent weekend that saw 100 arrests and 13 police officers injured in clashes with looters after a 20-year-old man was shot and wounded by cops on Sunday. Police identified the man as Latrell Allen, who was hit in the shoulder after opening fire on cops, according to authorities. Allen was recovering at the University of Chicago Hospital Tuesday and is expected to face attempted murder charges. Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown said more than 400 officers were deployed to stop the looting after Allen was shot. Police said the officers involved in the shooting did not have body cameras on and are asking community for any eyewitness video footage of the incident. Mayor Lori Lightfoot called the looting shocking, disheartening, and quite frankly enraging on a Twitter video late Monday. To those who had engaged in this criminal activity, it was wrong and outrageous, she said. I pray that you recognize the pain you have caused, but I also promise you that we will find you and bring you to justice. The rioting prompted the city to deploy multi-layered security measures that blanket the area with cops and restrict access to downtown Chicago from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. as of Monday. They raised the drawbridges. It's like a medieval siege. The measures also call for bus service to be suspended, highway ramps to be closed, and all but 7 of the 18 loop drawbridges in the city to remain up, with police checkpoints. So there you have it. The Ariel Atkins, the Black Lives Matter organizer, you are the first contestant in Moron of the Week. But wait, there's more. There's always more. Because stupidity is boundless. This is from FoxNews.com by Tyler Olson from, what day is it from? Doesn't say what day it's from. I hate that. Published 4 days ago. There we go. College student faces potential disciplinary action over Trump photo. I'm about to face some disciplinary action over getting mad about these damn pop-ups. Anyhow, college student faces potential disciplinary action over Trump photo, political Facebook post. A students' rights organization demanded that the school drop its proceedings against the student. A student at a New Jersey college is facing potential suspension after a fellow student filed a report against him for a Facebook post he wrote after using a photo of President Trump as the background on a Zoom call. And now, the students' rights organization is calling on the university to withdraw the slew of charges it brought against him. Stockton University doctoral student Robert Delida? I'm sorry for mispronouncing that because I know I did. According to a letter from the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, FIRE, is facing student conduct charges of disruptive behavior, discrimination, harassment, hostile environment, harm, and bullying and cyberbullying. The charges stem from July 1st, when Delida used a photo of Trump as his Zoom background, according to a letter sent by FIRE to the university. FIRE is demanding that the charges be withdrawn no later than Tuesday. The use of the photo upset other students and led to a discussion in a group message that became heated but was not threatening, according to the letter. Delida then left the group message, the letter says, to avoid continued conflict. But he later posted a message on Facebook on the leftist agenda of BLM and the white self-haters that he said he has seen in action at Stockton. I've gotten to the point that I have to say something. I love this country. We are a diverse yet assimilated population from all backgrounds. You know, the melting pot. I believe all must have the same opportunities, and I commit to make that a priority, Delida said. Beyond that, I am done with the leftist agenda of BLM and the white self-haters. I've seen it in action in my doctoral classes at Stockton and the general media. I'm not backing down. If we can't get past this, okay, I'm ready to fight to the death for our country and against those that want to take it down. I believe there are also many like me. Delida added in a comment, I'm surprised how many people are quiet. Maybe not. A comment to that post from a different person said, Bob Delida, that's what we do. Quiet. But we aim with precision. I guess he meant precision. Boom, done. No drama. The school then received complaints saying that the Trump photo on the Zoom call made students feel offended, disrespected, and taunted, and that the response to Delida's post made some students feel concerned that Mr. Delida may have similar views and thoughts of violence. Delida pleaded not responsible to the long series of charges from the school. FIRE said that a silent display like the Trump photo is broadly protected under the First Amendment, notably by the Supreme Court case Tinker v. Des Moines, which allowed students at a high school to wear anti-Vietnam War armbands. FIRE continued that even if Delida's Facebook post was subjectively offensive, it does not rise to the level of discriminatory harassment and thus remains protected by the First Amendment. FIRE also added that Delida cannot be guilty of threatening other students, likely responding to the school's charges that he created a hostile environment or caused harm with his words, because Delida's post is clearly political hyperbole. The letter added that the school cannot punish Delida for the other individual's comment on his post. Stockton University confirmed that it is pursuing the case against Delida but did not comment further. I can confirm that Mr. DeLita is a graduate student at Stockton University, a spokesperson for the university told Fox News. A code of conduct complaint regarding Mr. DeLita was filed with the university and is being investigated. The case is still open and no disciplinary action has been taken. The Federal Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, prohibits Stockton from providing any additional information. When asked by Fox News during a phone call if the university would bring charges against a student in a similar situation if the background had been Joe Biden, the spokesperson said that if a person files a complaint, it is obligated to investigate it. But a fact on the school's website notes that such a complaint does not obligate the school to bring a litany of charges against the student, as it did with DeLita. Does a complaint automatically become a campus hearing board complaint? A fact reads, no, the Care and Community Standards Office reserves the right to review any complaint submitted prior to a pre-hearing interview to determine if the Campus Hearing Board is the appropriate venue for resolution of the complaint. So, people were offended because he had a picture of Trump. Orange Man bad. And then somebody said something that they didn't like on this guy's Facebook post. So we're going to charge him with all this stuff and do everything we can to destroy his rights to speak, to silence his voice, because, you know, we can't stand to have dissent, so it must be crushed. Stockton University administration, you're the next contestant on Moron of the Week. And last, but most certainly not least, aside from Joe Biden, who always has an honorary spot in this, by the way, Mayor Stink Eye herself, Lori Lightfoot. This is a piece from Breitbart by A.W.R. Hawkins from August 10th, 2020. Mayor Lightfoot, we don't need federal troops. We need gun control. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Democrat, rejected calls for federal hope response to the looting and violence overnight in Chicago, opting instead to push for more gun control. Breitbart News reported that rioters and looters took to the streets of downtown Chicago hours after a 20-year-old man was shot and wounded by police in Chicago's Englewood neighborhood on Sunday afternoon. Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown described the 20-year-old as an armed male who allegedly pointed a gun at officers and shot at officers first. Police returned fire and wounded the suspect, etc., etc. Looting was horrible, blah, 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 yada, yada. A reporter asked Mayor Lightfoot about Illinois House Republican Jim Durkin's calls for the National Guard and others to step in and restore order. She responded by making clear she does not want federal troops in Chicago. Rather, she wants more gun control. Lightfoot called for common sense gun control, quote unquote, saying, we cannot continue to have circumstances where anybody and their brother can go across the border or into another part of Illinois and bring illegal guns into the city of Chicago because, you know, roll call sells them to them. It's all roll call's fault. Let's see what the Mayor Chameleon has to say in her own words once this ad stops in 11 seconds. Oh, wait, no, let's skip this.
Illinois House GOP leader Jim Durkin is calling for the National Guard and any federal help to help Chicago. Despite your misgivings and tussles with President Trump, should Chicago take him up on his offer for additional federal resources?
Well, first of all, you asked many layers of questions. I've been in contact with the governor. He and I spoke early this morning so that I could brief him on what happened. Both of us believe this is not an incident that requires the National Guard. In the event that we need additional resources, we will. We work hand in glove and well with the state police. They were with us last night. Those additional resources are available. We're not going to spare resources if we need them, but we want to make sure that we're prudent in the resources that we need. And again, no, we do not need federal troops in Chicago, period, full stop. I'm sure the president will have his way with this incident, but I'm calling upon him to do the things that we do need. We need common sense gun control. We cannot continue to have circumstances where anybody and their brother can go across the border or in other parts of Illinois and bring illegal guns into the city of Chicago. That is something that the federal government is uniquely qualified to handle, and we need the president to step up and do that. We need to make sure that ATF has adequate resources to actually do checks on gun dealers who are selling guns to straw purchasers and make sure that we hold them accountable. Again, and strengthening the laws so that we can do effective oversight around federally licensed gun dealers. We need that help from the federal government. I've asked for that repeatedly. I've never heard an answer from the president or any of his people. So if he wants to help, do the things that the federal government is uniquely positioned to do. Don't rattle the saber. Don't make threats. Actually act in a way that will provide real safety to our cities. That's what we need.
You mean like all the gun control Chicago already has, you dim-witted... I almost said a bad word. But yes, there you go. It's all Trump's fault. The violence in her city, run into the ground, I might add, for decades by Democrats, out of control, is Donald Trump's fault. And roll calls because he sells guns to Chicagoans. Yeah, there you have it, folks. Our contestants for Moron of the Week. The BLM organizer, the Stockton University administration, Mayor Stink Eye, and Joe Biden just because he's Joe Biden. Roll call. Who do you choose for the winner on this one? Roll call. I think she broke him.
He might be froze up because he's got a little blue dot in like his volume, but he's been on mute for a long time, so he might be having internet issues.
He might. All right, well, we will move on to Pickle.
Stockton University.
Stockton U administration. Squib. Squib.
If I get to the
mute button.
Yeah, Ariel Atkins, thanks for bringing up her name. I was looking for a picture of her for one of my videos, so appreciate that. Yeah, she's Moron of the Week.
Kingpin, who do you like for this?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the burn, loot, and murder girl.
Ariel Atkins. Well, those of you who have been here before know what's coming next. Those of you who haven't been here before, this is where you tell me what you think. Who do you believe deserves the title of Moron of the Week the most this week? Is it Ariel Atkins, the BLM organizer who says looting is reparations? The Stockton University administration who wants to get rid of their doctoral student for daring to show a picture of Donald Trump? Mayor Stink Eye for blaming Donald Trump and saying that they just need more gun control. You know, that thing that ain't working. Or Joe Biden just for being Joe Biden. Go ahead and let me know out there in the chat. Let's see. Bo Weevil says Stockton, the Stockton U administration. Scott P79 says BLM chick. Grim says, didn't Illinois implement their own FFL, make it better? She's nuts. Yes, she is nuts. Ozzy says Beetlejuice just because he lives in Illinois. I'm sorry. Biden. DM says he will always vote Biden until the election. Defense Dad says Stink Eye. 7 says looting is reparations. M. Gabriel says the chameleon. Which, for those of you who don't know, that's also Mayor Stink Eye, a.k.a. Lightfoot. Andrew Faulkner says they all need to feed the Tree of Liberty. Well, that's true. Pink Panther says she who must not be named. At least thrice, anyway. Just remember, if you're the one that says it, she comes to your house. Stink Eye, Beetlejuice. So far we have 4 for Ariel Atkins, 2 for Stockton University administration, 4 for Mayor Stink Eye, and 1 for Joe Biden. Do we have anyone out there who wishes to cast a vote and break the tie that we have between BLM and Stink Eye? I have yet to cast my vote, but I like to retain that until later because I don't want to unduly influence the voting. Obviously, I'm not a Democrat. Anybody before I'm forced to cast my ballot and declare a winner?
I just had a great idea.
Andrew Faulkner says BLM. Go ahead, Kingpin.
Do the like next
New
week,
York ties it up with Stink Eye. Sorry.
do an extra week of Moron of the Week and then have mail-in balloting. So that way the following week you can get all the mail-in ballots and read them a lot and see how that works.
It'll work however I want it to, just like mail-in voting. Let's see. The Hub says BLM. Welcome to the show. Don't recognize the name. Same with Carly Ellison. Don't recognize the name. Carly says Stockton. Clint Torres says BLM is the absence of logic. Yes. Speak Life says they're all so great I can't pick one, but the mayor reeks. Yes. Absolutely right. So is that a vote for Mayor Stink Eye? And Clint, is that a vote for Ariel Adkins? Just saying. Because so far, I've got 6 for BLM, 3 for Stockton, 5 for Stink Eye, and 1 for Uncle Touchy. And Gabriel says I could remove Stockton and have a second round of voting. I could, but I'm going to... Grim says Beetlejuice. I'm going to save that kind of thing, the bracket, for the end of the year show when we pick Moron of the Year. DM Foss says, okay, Clint says yes, so that was, who did Clint vote for before? BLM. BLM chick. Speak Life says the Mayor Stink Eye. So we are at 7 BLM, 7 Stink Eye, 3 Stockton, and 1 Joe Biden. Bo Weevil says, a real shock, the postal union endorsing Biden. No conflict with that and mail-in ballots. No, none. Of course, to be fair, they say they're endorsing Biden because Trump is gutting the post office budget because he doesn't want to fund mail-in ballots because he knows what will happen. If mail-in voting happens, he loses because they'll cheat.
Well, he's not exactly cutting their budget. They asked for a whole bunch of extra money.
Yes, and he said, no, you're not getting it.
Right.
He's not going to give them the rope to hang him with. I don't blame them. I don't blame him a bit. All right, so I am going to go ahead and cast my vote for BLM organizer Ariel Atkins because I think she's a complete tard. Although Stink Eye is awful damn close. Going once, folks. Going twice. That leaves us with 8 for Ariel Atkins, 3 for Stockton University Administration, 7 for Mayor Stink Eye, and 1 for Joe Biden. So, BLM organizer Ariel Atkins, you are the Moron of the Week.
And there we had another tale of stupidity in this week's episode of Moron of the Week.
Yep. It's unbelievable how stupid some people are. Calaveras says, my vote lost. I demand reparations. Yeah. Stupidity abounds, folks. That's just the fact of it. We live in a society that allows stupid to thrive. Unfortunately, that's the case. But we also live in a society that has heroes, folks. And, we go from the ridiculous to the sublime with this because there is another winner this week for Balls of Steel. Even though she doesn't have any. If she did, they would be of steel. Watch. Police officer saves California man for being struck by train with seconds to spare. I'm really shocked that the libs don't have the headline as police officer drags elderly man from wheelchair as he's sitting there doing nothing. But yes, let's go ahead and watch this.
I'll be out with the mail sack on the tracks trying to get him out. Go on, can you get up? Get up.
That's a Lodi police officer who dragged that man from certain death. Yes, it still struck his chair, and it did strike his foot. But he's alive because she, in 15 seconds from the time she exited her vehicle until the time the train arrived, went there and saved that man's life at great risk to her own. Let me go ahead and read the article. This is from the Sacramento Bee. I think it's Sacramento Bee. Yes, the Sacramento Bee. The rescue of a man in a wheelchair Wednesday, along a deadly stretch of railroad tracks in Lodi, was captured in breathtaking body camera video by the police officer who pulled him off the tracks with only seconds to spare. Officer Erica Urea of the Lodi Police Department was patrolling Lodi Avenue near the railroad tracks around 8:44 a.m. when she saw the man on the tracks. As she pulled up in her car, Urea noticed that the man, who was only identified as a 66-year-old, appeared to have his wheelchair stuck on the tracks just as the crossing arms were coming down, and an oncoming Union Pacific locomotive was fast approaching, police said in a social media post. Urea, the video showed, bolted from her cruiser and ran toward the man, attempting to pull his chair off the tracks. In the span of 4 seconds, seeing it wedged, she then pulled him out of the chair. Urea and the man both fell to the ground as the locomotive barreled across the track, the video shows, amid a frightening thud of the train striking the wheelchair and the man's leg. The time between Urea exiting her vehicle and the train crossing was 15 seconds, the video shows. Urea scrambled off the ground, radios for help, and grabs the man to pull him away from the tracks. The man, who suffered an injury, was taken to a hospital after being treated by Urea and Officer Chris Delgado, who arrived seconds later. He is expected to survive, police said. Officer Urea risked her own life to save another, and her actions prevented a tragedy today. We are extremely proud of Officer Erica Urea and her heroism, Lodi Police Department said in the Facebook post. The rescue came after a spate of train-related deaths this year in San Joaquin County. There have been at least 5 deaths in San Joaquin County, including in Lodi and Stockton. The latest death was July 28th, when a man was hit by a passing train near the Lodi Transit Station. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The year before, 11 people were killed in train-related accidents in the county, including 4 who were pedestrians, according to the Federal Railroad Administration. In neighboring Sacramento County, 7 people out of 9 killed by trains in 2019 were pedestrians stuck by locomotives. California has the highest number of train casualties of any state, according to the administration, accounting for 1/5 of all deaths and injuries reported. Based on preliminary 2019 data published in April, the agency said 141 people were killed and another 95 were injured in train-related accidents. And all I can tell you, folks, is that because of the actions of that brave officer, one more man was not added to the list. So, Officer Urea, my hat's off to you. You definitely have balls of steel.
Oh man, but cops need more training. You know, these cops, these militarized cops, they need more training. I wonder what part of pulling people off their wheelchairs before a train runs them over is a part of their training.
And you know, I couldn't tell if that was a manual wheelchair or electric wheelchair, but
I think it was an electric.
Wheelchairs, the electric ones weigh hundreds of pounds, hundreds and hundreds of. They're very difficult to move, and yet, you know, kind of flipping him over and just barely getting him out of the path is probably about her only option. To use that sort of leverage. The trains travel in different sections at predetermined speeds. They're told how fast to go. They don't deviate. They don't go a little bit slower, a little bit faster. They're either told through radio communication or by signals, this is the speed you travel. That speed is what it was supposed, and they can't just slam on the brakes.
Well, even if they could, they're not going to stop on a dime.
No. And there's a lot of people, you know, you're really not supposed to cross railroad tracks except at like streets and other places where it's designated, like at a train station or something like that, if they actually have a crossing. Technically speaking, if you decide to hop the tracks, it's trespassing. Now, if you're not caught, you know, then how's it, you know? But the whole thing is there's lots of people that like to walk the tracks, they'll walk the trestle, they'll walk in the tunnel, and they think the train will see them and the train will stop. And it just doesn't work that way.
I used to
that's
walk
right.
on
That
railroad
area's
tracks all the
good.
time.
And that, I was saying in the chat, that's about an hour south of where I live now, and not far from where I lived for the first part while I was in college. That area, that's where I believe that guy was actually at a designated crossing point on a street, because
Yes, he was.
Lodi, was built originally as a rail hub or as a rail town. So there is, in the older section of town, there's probably about a 5-mile section where the rail runs through, and you've got, streets crossing it every 400 yards or so. So they have a ton of, that's what's called an at-grade crossing, because the road and train are at the same level as each other. And that's part of why they've had so many people killed over the years there. Some suicide, some accident. But because they have such a high concentration of points of access for the public to cross the tracks, whether they're supposed to be there or not. But that's where that area is like.
And people lack patience when it comes to railroad crossings. If you're used to being around trains, the amount of time that they're blocking the road isn't that long. If you're not used to it, it seems like an eternity. There's lots of people that are impatient and they think they can outrun the train, whether it be on foot or in a car, and you can't always do that. Just like trying to climb on top of a rail car or something like that, it's not a good idea, because at any point that train could start moving, and even though it's slow, they pull those cars, it's a jolt. Yep. And it's not a good idea. Now, I mean, yeah, people walk across railroad tracks to get to stuff, or I've seen 2 guys jogging down the damn railroad tracks in my township. It's like, dude, it's not a jogging trail, but it's not trespassing unless you really get caught per se. But it's just the whole. I don't think it's public knowledge that by law you're not supposed to be walking the track.
Yeah,
he was at a crossing, but still.
When I was young, I walked railroad tracks routinely.
Yeah, and I mean it's still commonplace, but those sorts of things can, in some cases, be the cause of the accident. He might not have at the speed it was going, he might not have heard it or anything else like that, been able to see it if it's coming around a corner, something like that, and the gates come down and he's stuck and he's. Or he was trying to.
It kind of looked like he was he somehow got in line with the tracks and a wheel got stuck down in there.
Almost like he was trying to turn around and go back.
Yeah.
Which, just go at an angle and just cross the tracks, and
it looked like his chair was stuck.
Go perpendicular, but yeah, perpendicular, not an angle. Maybe that's what it was. He was traveling at an angle. And maybe got one wheel stuck, and that was it. It was done.
Yeah, done.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just glad that he had someone there to save him. And again, my hat's off to her. In our next segment, though, people didn't have anyone there to save them, and they had to rely on themselves. We're going to go ahead and go with what is Roll Call 219's favorite segment, Self-Defense Shoutouts. Self-defense shoutouts are not where I'm reveling in the proposition that the bad guy won the room temperature challenge and took a dirt nap. It is where I'm in fact reveling in the proposition that the good guy had the means, method, and opportunity to prevent the bad guy from making him do the same. First up, from the Great Bend Tribune, I don't see who it's by. It's from August 11th. Aggravated burglary suspect shot by homeowner. A convicted felon who allegedly broke into a Great Bend residence and physically assaulted the occupants Saturday evening was shot by one of the homeowners, the Great Bend Police Department reports. Zachary Horina, 27, was later flown by Eagle Med Air ambulance to Wichita, where his condition was reported as stable Monday morning. The homeowners at 1302 Jefferson Street, why would they put their address out there, were treated for injuries that evening by Great Bend Emergency Medical Service. According to reports, officers were dispatched to the residence at 7:17 p.m. They were advised that a male subject had entered the residence and a disturbance was taking place. They found Harina with a gunshot wound to his face. Harina was restrained and treated by Great Bend EMS, then transported to the University of Kansas Health System, Great Bend campus, before being flown to a Wichita hospital. Preliminary investigation shows Harina entered the residence, and when confronted by the homeowners, he began to physically assault them. During the disturbance, he was shot. According to the Kansas Department of Corrections website, Zachary Cole Harina had been discharged from the KDOC on July 26th, when his sentence for previous convictions expired. On January 24th, he was released to Barton County under post-release supervision. His past convictions, no longer active, include drug possession and possession of paraphernalia with 5 or more plants, committed on November 28, 2014, in Saline County, drug possession in Sedgwick County in 2017, and criminal possession of a weapon in Sedgwick County in 2018. So, he was a bad guy, doing bad guy stuff. You know what I always say, folks, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, and he won! Next up, this is from TulsaWorld.com from August 7th, 2020. Suspect shot in home invasion dies. Police seeking accomplice. Tulsa police are searching for a man with a gunshot wound after a homeowner reportedly shot 2 men who broke into his home early Friday morning. Seriously? No. Had to answer a stupid survey question in order to read this. Officers responded to the home in the 800 block of North New Haven Avenue about 1:40 a.m. Friday and found the homeowner bleeding from the head after being pistol whipped. Another man, believed to be one of 2 who entered the home while the homeowner, his wife, and child were sleeping, was found on the floor in a bedroom with a gunshot wound to the head. The homeowner said his dog's barking alerted them to the intruder's presence. Despite being pistol whipped, the homeowner told investigators he managed to take the gun away and shoot both intruders. The man found in the bedroom, who remains unidentified, was taken to St. John Medical Center and was pronounced dead later Friday morning. The homeowner was reportedly hospitalized with head injuries. The second man remains at large after fleeing the scene before officers arrived. Police say they had checked local hospitals unsuccessfully. Next up, in Self-Defense Shoutouts, this is from FoxNews.com from 4 days ago. Florida homeowner utilized Second Amendment right when he killed intruder, said the sheriff. A homeowner was utilizing his Second Amendment right to protect himself and his family when he shot dead a man who broke into his home with a gun, a Florida sheriff said. The homeowner acted in self-defense when he killed Ronald Fleet, 55, in Land O'Lakes on Saturday afternoon, Pasco County Sheriff Chris Nacco said. Any loss of life is tragic, but the victim was utilizing his Second Amendment right to protect himself and his family from the fear of Ronald, who was carrying a gun and kicking in the door, Nacco said, according to Fox 13 Tampa. I can't imagine the fear they were going through. A member of the homeowner's family was Fleet's estranged wife, Nacco said, according to reports. He said the woman was divorcing Fleet, who went to the home enraged that the homeowner was supporting her during the litigation. Fleet kicked in the door and then retreated when he fired his gun at the homeowner, and the homeowner fired back, Nacco said. Fleet was killed when he forced his way into the home a second time, the sheriff said. He said Fleet was carrying a .380 caliber handgun and discharged 1 round. Fleet had a prior arrest for domestic battery in 2011. So he shouldn't have been able to have the gun to begin with, but he did? It's almost like laws don't mean shit. Wow. Crazy. Next up, this is from Minnesota.cbslocal.com, WCCO, CBS, Minnesota, from August 9th, 2020. It's very crazy, scary. Robber shot by Minneapolis smoke shop employee. Although this one is questionable, and I'll tell you why, but I figured I'd put it in here. A man may have gotten more than he bargained for after trying to rob a smoke shop Saturday night in South Minneapolis. Fouad El Harfawi runs USA Smoke Shop near Hiawatha Avenue and 46th Street. He says the robbery happened just before closing. 2 guys walked in with a gun and tried to rob my employee, but he has a concealed weapon and he pulled it out and tried to defend himself, El Harfawi said. The guys took off. He chased them. According to El Harfawi, his employee fired at the robbers' car as they drove away and hit the man in the passenger seat. Minutes later, a barely conscious man stumbled into the Super USA convenience store at 38th Street and Minnehaha Avenue, a little more than a mile from USA Smoke Shop. Mohammed Kassab was working at Super USA that evening. We called the police for him to get help. You know, he's bleeding. It's very crazy. Scary, you know, Kassab said. Police say the man was likely shot and that he also matched the description of a suspect in a robbery a few minutes earlier. He was treated at a hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. El Harfawi feels his employee did the right thing. The robbers only got away with some cigarette cartons. I wasn't worried at all about the store or the products or the money, El Harfawi said. I was worried about my friend, you know. But when I heard he's safe, that gave me a lot of relief, you know. El Harfawi said his store's in a great neighborhood, but it was looted during the riots, and now he must cope with the situation. He also says he disagrees with the Minneapolis City Council's plan to dismantle the city's police department. Now I'm going to tell you what I find questionable about this. Is that the store clerk chased these guys outside and shot at them and killed this guy while they were driving away. They were not a threat. They were the store clerk was not in danger of imminent death or bodily harm. Frankly, he's lucky he's not being charged with murder for this, and there are definitely jurisdictions where he would be. I would caution, and I included this because it is a cautionary tale. Don't do this. If you are in fear of imminent death or bodily harm, that is one thing. They're running away. They're retreating. They're in their car driving away. You do not go out and send rounds downrange because you could very well end your ass up in prison.
Yeah, if this is the big igloo, do whatever you're gonna do.
Sure.
But while there's
but it
still
ain't.
law and order, yeah, while there's still law and order, like out there, and you're going to fail. There's nobody that's gonna be sympathetic if you're shooting at a car that's driving away. You know, that's just not gonna work out for you. Not to mention the fact, you're not Jerry Mitchell. You know, what if you hit 4 or 5 innocent bystanders while you're shooting at some car driving down the street?
Yeah. This is from News 19, WLTX.com. I think it might have something to do with Midnight Range TM. I'm not sure. Customer confronts suspects with gun at Columbia Waffle House. Shots fired. Deputies are investigating an overnight armed robbery after 2 men walked into a Waffle House and demanded money. Richland County deputies say 2 suspects have been arrested in an early morning attempted armed robbery of a Columbia Waffle House. Officers charged 19-year-old Jamal Ford and 22-year-old Kenzie Yates with attempted armed robbery. Investigators say it happened around midnight on Tuesday, August 11th, at the Waffle House located on 2345 Broad River Road. Oh, this is in Columbia, South Carolina, not Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, so I guess it's not Midnight Range TM. But you know how you can understand how I would think that. It's at a Waffle House, right?
Close enough.
According to officials, the suspects walked into the business, pointed guns at the cook, and demanded money. Deputies say one customer in the restaurant, who is also a licensed gun owner, confronted the suspects. Gunfire was exchanged in the restaurant, and the suspects ran away without any money. No injuries were reported. Officers say deputies and canine units were able to track down the suspects after a perimeter and track had been set up. Yates and Ford were taken to the Richland County Detention Center. Good for them. And good for the customer to drive off those 2 scumbags.
I really like the story about the guy that got pistol whipped and then took the bad guy's gun away from him and did his business.
That's right.
That was my favorite.
You're in the fight until you can't fight anymore. That's it, period. In a situation like that, you fight like the third monkey and they're loading the ark. You know, you get on it and do whatever you have to do to preserve, protect, and defend you and yours. And on that note, folks, I think we are going to call it quits. I love the fact that you guys are here, some of you from beginning to end. I love the fact that I'm seeing some new faces and new names out there. You know, even the trolls would have been welcome had they been civil. Again, I don't want an echo chamber. I want discussion. I like to bounce my ideas off of other people's ideas. That makes me question my ideas and really think about it and decide if what I believe is actually the truth. I think that's how we grow and learn as human beings, and I welcome it. But if you're a dick, well, you're going to get circumcised around here and cut off. On that note, I would like to give my esteemed panel an opportunity to give their last words of wisdom, final thoughts, any plugs they want to make. Roll call, are you back with us, or are you chat napping, or did your internet kick you out? Yeah, I don't hear from Ro, so Ro may be chat napping. Let's move on to the irascible yet lovable Squibload. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with, sir?
Nah, thanks for the invite. Everybody have a good weekend. I'll be maybe working on some videos. It's always fun to do.
Kingpin, is there anything you'd like to say before we leave tonight?
Thanks for having me, and if everybody out in the chat could do me a huge favor, and let's get the Chatteroony t-shirt buried into Budget's head so we can get some Chatteroony merchandise.
Yes, Kingpin has suggested that I make a Chatteroony. Welcome to the Chatteroony.
It's almost better, like you almost have to have the audio to go with it so we can hear your voice at the same time.
I don't know that anybody really wants that, but thank you anyway. Speaking of thank you to everybody who's out there, particularly those of you who've been here from beginning to end. You know, this thing started at 11:30, and here on the Eastern Time Zone, it's almost 2 a.m. I am, as always, humbled and amazed that you've chosen to spend this time with us on a Friday night when you could be doing absolutely anything, or maybe not, depending upon your COVID restrictions, right? Bars in Ohio are closed after 10 p.m. now because, you know, at 9:59, the Rona ain't a thing, but, 10 o'clock, it becomes horrible. So, thank you for being here. Do you guys like the restrictions you're under? Do you like the restrictions that they plan for you? If not, call your Congress critters and elected representatives. Let them know what you think. Send them a snail mail, email, telephone, telegraph, smoke signals, semaphore, heliographs, bicycle messengers, carrier pigeons, anything that you have to do to let them know what you think. And never, ever, ever give up the fight. I'll see you guys on the next one.